Thank you for joining the Once Changing the World, India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. Today, I'm delighted and honored to have with me Dr. Fred Jordan, who's the co-founder and co-chief executive officer at FinalSpark, a startup that is using biological neural networks for the design of artificial general intelligence. FinalSpark has launched an innovative online platform called Neuroplatform that provides remote access to 16 human brain organoids. This groundbreaking service claims to be the world's first online platform delivering access to biological neurons in vitro. And their claim is that the bioprocessors used in their Neuroplatform consumes 1 million times less power than traditional digital processors or these large language models we've been used to. So, Doctor, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. It will be great if you could start with explaining what are organoids, how do you culture them, what types of organoids can be cultured, whether it's brain, kidney, lung, heart, how realistic are they structurally and functionally to our organs?
Thanks for your invitation first. Now, these are a lot of questions. Okay, so I can tell you fundamentally what we do, okay, to get to the point where we have organoids, okay. So we are using induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSC, human ones. That means that it all starts with differentiated cells, like the one of the skin, for instance, can be used to create stem cells. Okay, this is quite new. 20 years ago it was not existing. Can I say? Okay, and we use these stem cells as the starting point. From these stem cells, to answer to your question, you can differentiate those cells into any types of cells of your body. Okay, this can be lung, or this can be muscles. In our case, we are interested by the brain. In order to guide the differentiation into the brain direction, we are going to apply some specific protocol in our lab, where with the help of specific molecules, we are able to force the differentiation in one direction. And this is what we do. This is going to take actually several months, this operation, at the end of which we'll get a small, say, ball, okay, like of 500 microns of diameter, made of 10,000 neurons.
You say that you take a skin cell, turn it into an iPSC, or induced pluripotent stem cell. From there, culture it to becoming any type of cell you want or an organ. And you create these organoids out of it. Right now, you are working on brain organoids. Now, a human brain is extremely complicated. It comes with 80 billion neurons, 100 trillion synapses, the way they fire and wire, brings up our entire sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. And you're saying this, it's around 10,000 neurons, right? There was this company, I'm forgetting the name. They had created these brain organoids, which had somewhere around 80,000 neurons into last year, I think. And they had also trained those organoids to play Pong. Can you elaborate on this? I mean, you say you culture these cells turning into any kind of organoids. Your specialty is a brain organoid. When you culture it into a brain organoid, what's the process of it turning into a computer, a biocomputer? What's the process? I mean, it'll be great if you can talk about that.
Well, first, the short answer is that we don't know. Okay, this is a topic of research. Okay, I think the company that you are referring to, maybe it was Cortical Labs.
Right, Cortical Labs.
I'm not sure if they're using organoids or 2D adherent cells, which is another protocol, also very interesting, which has also many advantages. So if you want to turn a brain organoid into a biocomputer, you have to train it to do something useful. Okay. So it's like your computer. If you don't give it any software, it's perfectly useless. And the thing is that for computer, we have programming language. So I would say the problem has been fundamentally solved, how to program computers. It's not the case for brain organoids. Okay. Here, the programming relies in changing the synaptic connections between the neurons. And it's really the process of learning, which is actually quite close to what, as a human being, you can experience. Okay, that means you have stimulations and you have reactions. And if your reaction is matching the intent and goal, then you have a successful learning. This works for anything, speaking language, playing piano, whatever. Okay. So now the thing on which many people are working, including those using our platform, is to train those neurons. And then there are different ways to do this.
Can you elaborate on this? When you say train the neurons, these are these organoids. And the news says you've got 16 brain organoids which are interconnected. When they're interconnected, how are you reading the firing and wiring, the signals from the organoids? How structurally and functionally are they similar to a human brain? You using some kind of array to kind of capture the electrodes will be great if you could first maybe talk about how structurally and functionally they are similar to the human brain, and how are you capturing the signal from there and training it to do something?
Well, again, these are a lot of questions, and I have a very limited memory. So, tell me if I forgot some of them, okay? Now, if we compare the organoid model to the human brain, we are very far from it, but very, very far, okay? The first thing is that in your brain, you have different areas with different types of neurons and subtypes of neurons and morphology of connectivity. We can replicate to some extent some of the types and subtypes of the neurons. And the same for the glial cells. Okay, consider that you have 50-50% glial cells and neurons. Very important glial cells. Yeah. But about the morphology, there is a lot to say. The morphology is the dendritic morphology. Okay, you have a neuron, you have the axon part, you have the dendritic part. How the shape of it is also extremely important, and it depends on the different areas of the brain. So now you have protocol. If you want to do hippocampal organoids, this is what we are doing, for instance. You have specific protocols. If you want to do striatum organoids, you have other protocols. This is quite well known in the literature, new but well known. So this can be done, but even those protocols which pretend to do something more in the direction of a specific area of the brain are probably very far actually from it. Still, there are things that you get, I would say, almost for free. You get a lot of neurons if you want, okay? Basically, we are unlimited in the number of neurons. We stop the multiplication process voluntarily, okay? Otherwise, we would have too many and they would die. Also, the connectivity is very high. I mean, order of magnitude is like 10,000 synapses per neuron. Okay, I would say you get this for free. Okay, so the problem is it's connected randomly. So it's a good starting point, but that's all. Okay, so this is for if you compare what we have to the brain. Also, don't forget about the size. Okay. Here we are talking about 500 micrometer of diameter organoids. Our brain is much bigger. It's currently not possible, as far as I know, to make big organoids like 1 centimeter. Well, actually, it's very easy to do them, but they will die. There will be necrosis inside because the nutrients cannot enter. Because when you do organoids, we really do neurons and glial cells, that's all. but that's not enough to make a brain. Actually, you need vascularization system to bring the neurons inside. So if you don't do it, well, it will grow, but it will die. So this is why we are a bit, but this is the case more or less of, I don't know the last works, maybe the past few months, but normally this is a hard limit, the size that we can train. This is an open problem that we will consider at some point for sure. Okay. So this is also a big difference. So how can we interact? This was also one of the question I remember. So fundamentally, you interact with electrical signals. Okay, this is actually what we are doing together right now, and the people viewing and listening to this, and they get actually at the end of the day they get electrical stimulations into their brain, and I'm doing some also to move my mouth and talk. Well, so if you have a brain organoids and some electrodes, basically you have the core of the system needed to transfer information. You don't need actually anything else. You don't need sensors or things like this. We can simulate this. Okay. I will not say that now that there is many questions when you put some electrodes, neurons don't like it too much. Okay, this is one of the problems. You may have problems of the limitations on the number of electrodes. So there are a lot of problems that come with electrodes. Okay. And there are also other things. When you think about training, okay, the process in which you learn something is not only by input, output, there is also some internal things like, for instance, if you think about neuromodulators like dopamine, that will reward a successful training. This is known in the behaviorism science in vivo to be essential part of the training. Okay, and therefore we also include dopamine release at critical period of the execution of an action. That means output on the electrodes in order to reward some behaviors of the brain organoid. So this is a part of the training, but there are also many modulators, and we may be using in the future more and more in order to get better results.
Right. So early days, but yes, it's very groundbreaking, because to create a organoid, like which has somewhere around 10,000 neurons, that itself with just maybe like a single cell is somewhat magical. And I always like to imagine what this could mean in the timeline of maybe like a 20 or 30 years, when the technology kind of evolves. Because the current way that we compute, obviously it's extremely power hungry and intensive, and definitely that's not the way forward to create artificial intelligence or general intelligence that some of the top companies are working towards. This is maybe the glimpse into what the future could look like. But I think there should be more investors, more brave entrepreneurs such as yourself who are zigging while the world is zagging. Where the world is going here, there's a tiny bunch of people who are going towards this organoid biocomputer. So more power to people such as yourself, because I think the niche always sometimes wins, because they are the ones who try and do something which is different and very unique. Because somehow I see that because of these large language models, the research in the other areas of AI seems to have kind of gone down, and everybody is kind of just running towards these large language models. So I hope that these more novel approaches towards what we are going towards, building, the general intelligence, I hope that what you guys are doing plays a role. There are others in the field who are working towards building organoids and organoids, biocomputer. You mentioned that there are definitely these challenges to scale. We can just be 500 micrometer. What are there like these? What are the limitations? You think someday that maybe this approach of creating organoids could lead us towards maybe full scale organoids? Is there a future or chance like that? And maybe also do talk about Neuroplatform, that you are offering with 9 universities who seem to have kind of using the your platform. Will be great if you could talk about that. A, scaling, and B, Neuroplatform.
Well, first about what you are saying, which is very true actually, I think, is that all industry today, as far as AI goes, are leading into one specific direction, is digital computing. There is no question about that. Everything is out. And this is the very reason why we are not there. Because we are 6 people. There is no chance we're going to compete. Not a single chance. However, the kind of things that we are doing, well, they don't look in this direction. They don't even understand. We talk to, IBM, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Intel. They don't have the understanding or actually they are in such a winning situation that they actually have no interest of diverting some efforts into something so orthogonal to what they are doing. Okay. So we are very happy about this situation because in this world, it's very difficult for a small company to be really innovative and not following big ones, to have something radically different. But there is a price to pay. And as you mentioned, the price to pay is investors. Because investors look exactly in the same direction as the big ones. That means that's a rational thing to do. Okay. And in order to finance such research, you find that on the Earth today, it's extremely rare, the circumstances into which you can finance these things. State won't finance, and VCs will not finance, and big companies neither. Okay, so in our case, for instance, this is our second company. The first one is a real commercial success, and we are the full owner of this, so we can finance FinalSpark. So, but it's a very unique situation. So there are very few people in the world who have the chance of doing this. So just to answer the question about the positioning, now you're talking about whether general artificial intelligence could be done this way. Sort of real AI, things like this. If you consider what we're doing, say, okay, let's make AI with living neurons. One may think that, well, this is wild. This is maybe it's not going to work because that's so original. That's so disruptive. Somehow, I would say this is extremely conservative. This is the fact of saying that you can simulate neurons on a computer and have something intelligent, which is very groundbreaking. This is a very big assumption. We are already using biological neurons as we're talking, you and me, and it's working. So I'm just using a very conservative approach. So that's the funny thing about it. Okay. Now, just also to mention one point, the 16 organoids that we have are not interconnected between them. Okay. They are all accessible in parallel for experiments. Sometimes we love to launch experiments on the 16 organoids at the same time, so we get more results. Okay. Because with biology, one of the challenge is always reproducibility. It doesn't matter if I'm successful at doing one thing if I cannot do it again. Okay, and each organoid is different. Okay, like I would say, like each human being. Although all organoids have the same DNA, by the way, in our case. Okay. And more or less, moreover, we put them on electrodes, and the angle of which we put them is totally random, so we don't know what we are going to get connected. Okay, so I'm coming to the Neuroplatform. these 16 organoids can be used by people remotely. So the funny thing is that this is an output, a result of the COVID, an unexpected secondary effect of the COVID, this platform. Because during the COVID, we could not come to the lab, but we still wanted to do experiments. So what we started to do is to make remote connections possible from home in order to stimulate and read neurons and change the pumps and everything. At the end of the COVID, we could do everything from home. Almost everything, not everything, but most of the things, okay? And then we realized, well, if we can do it from home, I mean, 20 kilometers from the lab, maybe people 10,000 kilometers from the lab can also use it. And then we asked just 2 universities if they were interested. There were 34 universities that wanted to use it. So, of course, we could not provide also for free. Actually, this is what we do. 34 access in parallel. So we selected 9 based on criteria, 2 criteria: the quality of the scientific project, okay, based on the literature and a number of things, and the capability also of our system compared to what they want to do, and the motivation of people. Okay. What were their grade in the university didn't matter, whether it was student or professor. What matters is that these 2 points. Okay. And then we selected 9 of them. And they are using it, I can tell you, 24/7. Okay. So there is some booking for each of them. And even us, we have to book some time to use the neurons. So that's very funny to see all these people working on the same topic as us, which is biocomputing or wetware computing. I don't know how people call it. So this is interesting because we can see different approaches. It's really an open innovation approach. On such a problem, what we need are great and motivated people, and let them play. And also help them to we update our software constantly so they can have more ways to stimulate and read the neurons in order to make more experiments. So
right. So yes, Doctor, I mean, wish you and your 6-member team the very best. And I think some of the greatest innovations happens with small teams where there's no hierarchy, because if you go to see, Microsoft hasn't built OpenAI. They acquired them when Microsoft has got all the money. Google didn't build DeepMind. It was already there. They acquired them. And I think some of the greatest innovation happens in these small companies. And I guess the natural tendency of humans and also investors are, go where you have the quickest ROI. And biocomputer could be one of those, game changer way of approaching generally aware intelligence, because the large language model with its data hungry approach is definitely not the way how a brain works. Our brain functions completely differently compared to these LLMs, which has got humongous amount of data which needs to be ingested, very, very power hungry. So yes, I mean, what you guys are doing, if you persevere, could be the approach where we could get to artificially generally intelligent machines. I was assuming that these 16 organoids would be interconnected like a hive mind, but you said they are all single pieces or singular connected. You mentioned about these 9 universities who you have given access to. What have they managed to build so far? Are they training it? Are they developing some things? Will be great if you could talk about what those 9 universities have done so far.
So first thing, we have started, so they've been working for a few months already, okay, these universities, and we have started to organize a weekly meeting with one of them since 2 weeks ago. So we are in the process of of knowing their exact status of what they are doing. Okay. What I can tell is that there is one direction which I found very interesting is on the connectome. Okay, that means you have some theories that enable to, well, not only theories, so algorithms, which enable to guess which neurons are connected with which neurons based on the spatial-temporal pattern we get from the electrodes. And this university in France has been able to find the connectivity between some of the neurons. And even better, they've been able to modify the connectivity of these neurons by photonic stimulations, that means high frequency stimulation. So, and this is a very interesting result, and also a result that probably, I'm not sure we would have got by ourselves, because we were not going in this direction, okay? In the direction of virtual environment, where you try to, I was saying to you before, all you know about your environment, you get it from based on electric input and output with your environment, okay? And I told you we can simulate this. We can simulate a virtual environment, okay, in which the organoid will live. And it will believe that it's the reality, like in the Matrix, if you want. And some people had one group had exactly the same idea, because we are working also a bit in this direction. But it was to the point, there was the same assumption, same kind of universe, and that was really striking. And, you know, it's about, if you think about the first airplanes that were invented, they were invented in different places, more or less at the same period of time. And at the end, it looked more or less the same. So that's very interesting. There are two mysteries here. Why suddenly human beings go in one direction and have a new idea? And second thing, which is less maybe a mystery, is why people end up with more or less the same solutions. Even though they're not, I mean, it's not a question about spying, just a question about, given the same idea, the logical process leads you to more or less the same solutions, given the state of the art of the engineering today. So we are in the process of collecting this, and we know on which of these universities are working. This can also be found in the publications we did in Frontier last month. We'll make a little summary of what are doing each university.
Right. What do you think are the breakthroughs needed to create a functional biocomputer which surpasses a silicon, a traditional computer? And can you quantify the potential energy savings of wetware computing compared to a traditional computer?
So, well, I'm going to start with the last one, because there are some numbers floating around. Is like 1 million times less energy consumed, okay? Just to put this in perspective, your brain is made about 100 billion of neurons with 10,000 connections per neurons. Tomorrow, I want to simulate your brain on a digital computer with a cool, nice simulation. Not perfect, okay? But real time. I would need a small nuclear plant. This is what I mean. But your brain, as we talk now, is consuming the equivalent of 20 watts of energy. So we can see here that this is exactly the definition of using the wrong tool. Right? But that depends on the task, okay? You are not going to run Windows 11 on the biocomputer. I don't believe so. The latency of biocomputers is going to stay forever big compared to digital computers. It's really about the process of neurons. I mean, actually, neurons are not working with electricity. That's wrong, okay? This is not how it works. It works with ions traveling, okay? across the membrane. I mean, that's an incredibly slow process compared to electricity. And this is only about the impulse, okay? Then you have the connection between the synapses, which is even more horrible. Like you have actually a release of molecules across the membrane that goes on the postsynaptic side when there are receptors that are going to get it and transform it or let enter some ions on the postsynaptic side. And I mean, this is a very slow process by essence. Okay, so no, the biocomputers are not going to take it all over, and there will be no digital computers. I mean, sure, okay, but there are many things, inventions which have been done. I mean, TV exists, okay. It did not replace books, okay. Internet came, it did not replace TV. So things are adding to each other. So, but from some tasks, particularly those tasks where we use artificial neural networks, biological neural networks are very, very welcome. Because it's quite an obvious thing to do, okay? Because on artificial neural networks, you are trying to simulate the neurons. So if you've got already them, I mean, that's a reasonable step to go from one to the other, okay? And it's not a reasonable step to go to making an operating system like Windows on a biocomputer, okay? It's the same for quantum computers. I mean, we are talking about very specific tasks also for them. Now, I just want to put in perspective this. If you want about my own answer, okay, just want to criticize now my own answer. If you would have asked the people who invented the transistor, what would be the applications? I'm pretty sure he would not have thought about smartphones and the internet and things like this, okay? So I'm saying things based on the very short-sighted view that I have with my organoids and my electrodes.
Right. Yeah. So I think, yeah, the canvas is really wide and open and it's humongous. You mentioned about connectomics and maybe able to simulate a human brain. The connectomics, I think through the year, we've managed to, through the ages, we managed to, create a connectomics of a C. elegans worm, a neuron, which has got somewhere around just 302 odd neurons. We managed to do the connectomics of a fruit fly. And recently, I think Google managed to do the connectomics of a cubic millimeter of a human brain. What do you think are the blockers for possibly, doing the entire connectomics of a human brain? How far are we of, doing? Because, there are various people around the world who are working towards, in vitro approach of understanding. There's Henry Markham with the Blue Brain Project and others who are.
Yes.
How far are we from understanding the entire human brain? And then possibly maybe simulating, because I'm vested in AR, VR, metaverse, spatial computing. And I firmly believe that we are already living in a simulated world and a matrix. And because if we can possibly maybe simulate a C. elegans worm and do a connectomic and create a simulation, I mean, I'm sure we can scale that up. But what are your thoughts on that? How long do you think we have to kind of simulate the entire human brain?
So first, I have no specific expertise on this. Okay, I've the Blue Brain project is important for us. Okay, because it was mainly in Switzerland, which is 30 kilometers from my lab. Okay, is the EPFL, the Blue Brain project plant. So and probably it played a very big influence in the fact that we were able to create this company here in Switzerland, because indirectly we got a lot of competence, and even Professor Markham, who was in charge of the project, we met him, so we had some inspirations. Okay, so feel good about this. Now you talk about understanding, okay, the whole thing. Look at the literature, the past 40 years. Published about human neurons and glial cells. it seems that we always get more layers of complexity as we go into the details. We accumulate more and more knowledge, okay? And the thing is, it's not sure. I mean, I guess one day it will be useful, but it's hard. We never got so many information, and I wonder how we can make an efficient use of the all accumulated knowledge from the past 40 years. And that's beginning to be a real problem, actually, the integration of the information into something that we can use. Because biology is not like physics, when you can have a law that explains every experiment at once, and that's it. No, it's a question of always particular case, and details are extremely important, and there are details everywhere. So I can tell you the relationship with understanding that we have at FinalSpark is totally different. It's the same of thing like with the big companies doing digital and us doing something else, okay? We are also radically different here. We don't try to understand. Okay, we are not going to beat 40 years of very smart people, of very knowledgeable people with 6 people. No chance, okay? What we can do is read the literature, what all these great people have already done, and try to use one of the things which are known for our purpose. Period. And, doing things without understanding the details is not so groundbreaking. Let's talk about planes again. I'm not sure that the inventors of plane really mastered aerodynamics. Actually, they didn't know anything about this. They just tried. Okay. I'm not saying about trying blindly, okay? But think about artificial neural networks. It's even more incredible. We know all the details perfectly because we do it. We do exactly the same thing. And even though we know everything, we still have some publications to try to understand how the whole thing works. This is incredible. So the way of understanding for a company, because we are trying to do things that work. This is our goal, okay? And the primary thing is to make it work, is not to understand all the details.
So doctor, these are living computers. What's your intuition over here? Does it feel pain? How long is it allowed to keep the organoid alive? Do the organoids auto-perish, or it has to be terminated? What are the ethical considerations and challenge you foresee with the development of wetware computing?
So once again, there are many questions in your questions, okay? So for the pain, I don't know. Okay, let's say this, okay? There are things that I know very well and things I don't know at all. And I think things that nobody knows, actually. So there are 3 categories of things. For the duration of the lifetime, okay, of our organoids, at the beginning, it was like 1 hour, okay, 3 years ago. Now it's like 100 days. In 100 days, we feel it's okay to do some good work on learning and training those neurons. Okay, so we are not working too much on the lifetime extension. Okay, now your neurons are going to live about 80 years. It's typical on human beings. So we see the fundamental lifespan of neurons is about 80 years. I'm confident that we can extend this. Don't think this is going to be a major challenge. This is a challenge, a serious challenge, but we have even bigger ones. Okay. So we don't have to terminate. No, in this sense. Now what happens is that when we see that there is low activity, sometimes we remove the brain organoids and replace with new ones, because you need to have some level of activity to react to stimulation. So we have a process based on this. I must mention that it's not because we see lower activity that there is a lower activity. Let me explain. Let's talk about glial cells. Okay, nobody cares about these poor glial cells. Okay, but I think I have to fight and stand up for the glial cells. So, and these glial cells may be developed between the organoid and the electrode, and may increase the impedance of the connectivity that we have. And the end result may be that we see less spiking activity just because there is some isolation between our electrodes and the neurons. Okay. So just also to put this in perspective, when we say that there is less activity, maybe it's nothing to do with the health of our neurosphere or organoids. And you should know that in the protocol that we have, we prepare the organoids and orbital shaker when they shake like 80 RPM, okay, 24/7. And then we put them out and put them on electrodes when we need them. We have thousands of them shaking like this, 24/7. But we can keep them alive for 2 years, no problem. Actually, we never got, since we started 5 years ago, we never got situation where they died inside the incubator. So the problem is more the interaction with the electrodes. Clearly, living cells like neurons don't like too much electrodes. So and it's a well-known problem, okay? So people are working on this, and as often we reuse a lot all the work that has been done in vivo. There's about 30 years of electrophysiology in vivo that we can reuse. So we keep on reading all what the others have done and say, that's wonderful, they did this. Okay, we can use it for our biocomputer. So it's marvelous to have all this state of the art, just to pick these things that we need.
Right. Doctor, there are various labs around the world who are working with organoids to understand the human brain better. In the search of, trying to create therapy and treatment, because, these organoids kind of resemble or brains or lungs, and then you learn like what's right or wrong, and then you kind of create, a treatment or a therapy around it. Yep. Is FinalSpark trying to work in that area where your understanding of the Neuroplatform could contribute to a deeper understanding of the human brain, its functionality, which could eventually lead to maybe treatment and therapy in these neurological disorders and brain injuries?
I mean, think about this. You can develop an organoid of your own brain with the same neurons as you, using your DNA, okay? So I can actually test molecules, drugs, directly on your own neurons without affecting you. And this is a better model than any animal models by far, okay? Even the fact that it's small portion, it's still better, okay? And that's not all. There is secondary effect. Secondary effects is one of the critical problems of drugs. Sometimes you take something for the brain and then you kill your lung. Wonderful, okay. So it's possible also to culture your lungs. Organoids of your lungs and pancreas and everything, actually. Small organoids for everything. And then you can test that the molecule is doing this job for your brain and it's not doing bad secondary effect on the other organs of your own body. Okay, so that is a very interesting direction of research. And I know some people, some startups are really focused on this. The big difference is that we have. I mean, it's not a competitive difference because we did not want to go into this market, but the fact is what we have is available here right now. Okay, I mean, if you go on the FinalSpark website, you will see the neuron spiking live, 24/7. They are there. This is live information coming from the lab. If they all die, you will see no spikes. You will be informed as good as we are. Okay, so there is always a difference between ideas. Okay, we could do this, we could do that. That would be great if, okay. And reality, come to the site, it's working right now. So this is something.
Organoids is going to play such a huge role in the future of healthcare, especially in like you mentioned, the drug discovery space, where you could take an individual's cell, turn it into any kind of organ, learn from it, and create better drug, do personalized medicine. So the future of healthcare, and I think organoids are pretty much interlinked. My last question to you, Doctor. I mean, what's the future you envision for FinalSpark? And how do you see this wetware computing that you talk about evolving per se in maybe like a 10-year time year horizon? And what would be these applications? What do you think could be created, developed out of these wetware computing?
For the future of FinalSpark, that depends also on how much money we are going to raise. Okay, so right now we are in a situation when we invest ourselves the money that we get from the other companies. So this can last for long. Okay, but we'd like to speed up. Ultimately, we would like to raise 50 millions of Swiss francs. So 50. So it's a lot of money for a company in on a deep tech field like we are, okay? But if this happens, I mean, this may be the difference that sparks really the research at a much larger scale, because we need to do a lot of trials here, okay? It's not only about thinking, it's about experimenting and testing. And this takes a lot of people and smart people. Okay, so the future of FinalSpark is around these investors, but I'm happy to see that in the past few weeks there are several investors who came to us and seem to be very interesting about what we're doing, essentially from US or from Asia, I would say. So that's interesting. Now the future biocomputing, I'm sure it's here to last. Okay, it's not going to go away, for sure. Okay, our plan is that we should have something working for cloud computing applications in 7 years. So cloud computing, so it's not any type of cloud computing. Okay. You are not going to have cryptographic information computation this way, but all tasks done by artificial neural networks and on a cloud computing system like ChatGPT, for instance, actually possibly are candidate for this. And the benefit at the end of the day is that you use the system, whatever system that you already use today, which is based on cloud computer and AI. And you get the same task done, but in the process, you consumed 1 million times less energy. This is the end result. I mean, this is a very interesting objective in the world as we know it, with all the constraints that we have, energy growing more and more, energy demand, resources limited. Either you decrease the use of resources or you do the same work for much less energy. And we believe in the second approach, okay? Not doing less, but consuming less, yes. And we are not talking about a few percent of economy. I'm putting a very big factor here, is 1 million times. Actually, if you're able to do what we want, there will be no problem at all in computing on environmental impact of computing. This will disappear totally. Okay, so that's interesting. I think it's interesting and direction.
Right, Doctor. Really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. I hope that investors from all around the world, join hands and support entrepreneurs who are creating or challenging themselves to building a completely new way of doing things. I hope that investors now try and be a little bit bold and invest in entrepreneurs who are creating a new paradigm. Because like you pointed out, these large language models consume huge amount of energy, and we are staring at climate crisis. Every year we are exceeding the 1.5 degrees Celsius And we need to relook at the way we compute, because the world is growing digitally, it's getting more interconnected, and it's not just silicon. I mean, the dependence on that needs to go away. And I think maybe we need to look at neuromorphic computing, which I think is really cool, quantum computing, which I think still will take some more time. But I hope that there is more investors who support these alternative way, which could truly lead us to the goal of building AGI. Maybe neuromorphic computing, maybe the wetware computing, maybe quantum computing. And so wish you and your team the very best. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Really appreciate this.
Thanks you.